Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is aircraft woman Jill Bolte. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and students on behalf of the following schools. From Victoria, St Bede's Primary, North Baldwin, and Hillcrest Christian College, Air Hill Primary Department, Clyde North. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Children, please sit. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Clarence Vernon De Lisle. Clarence Vernon De Lisle was born in March 1894, one of 4 children born to Alfred and Emily De Lisle. His mother passed away when he was only 4 years old, and De Lisle grew up in the Burnley and South Yarra areas of Melbourne with his father and 3 young sisters. After attending school, he worked as a labourer, and at the time of his enlistment was living in Essendon. De Lisle enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 10th of July 1915 and commenced training for services overseas. On the 29th of September, he sailed from Melbourne aboard the transport ship Austerley with the reinforcements of the 21st Infantry Battalion. De Lisle did not go to Gallipoli, but instead went to Egypt for a period known as the doubling of the AIF, when new units were created and veterans from Gallipoli were mixed with new recruits to ensure that the new units destined for the bloody battlefields of France and Belgium had experienced soldiers in their ranks. In this period, De Lisle continued his training and was eventually posted to the newly created 60th Battalion, which formed part of the 15th Brigade of the 5th Australian Division. In June 1916, he embarked from Egypt for France and the war on the Western Front. Soon after his arrival in France, De Lisle travelled with the rest of the 60th Battalion from Marseille to Stenbec in northern France. On the 14th of July, they had their first taste of trench warfare when they began conducting fatigue work in the front line and communication trenches of Rouge de Boux near Armentières. Just days later, on the 19th of July 1916, they took part in the Battle of Fromelles, Australia's first major engagement on the Western Front. In this battle, Australian forces formed the northern pincer of an attack aimed at the bulge in the German lines, known as the Sugarloaf. De Lisle and the 60th Battalion were in the 15th Brigade, so formed part of the right of the Australian attack. On the afternoon of the 19th, after a 7-hour high-explosive artillery bombardment of the German lines, troops of the 5th Australian Division climbed out of their trenches into no man's land. The 8th and 14th Brigades crossed the boggy terrain with relative ease and were able to occupy large sections of the German trenches. De Lisle's 15th Brigade, however, attacked on a section of the front where the artillery barrage had been largely ineffective, and the Germans were able to man their defences. When De Lisle and the 60th Battalion ran into battle, they faced heavy artillery, machine gun and rifle fire, and suffered heavy casualties. The 60th Battalion's field diary records that majority of the unit was only able to get within about 80 metres of the German lines before being forced back. Those that did manage to reach the German lines were later forced back in heavy fighting and German counterattacks. De Lisle's 60th Battalion was virtually wiped out in a single day in the Battle of Fromelles. It suffered over 750 casualties and did not take part in any other major action for the rest of the year. De Lisle was one of many men killed in this bloody and chaotic battle, likely killed by German artillery or machine gun fire as he took part in the initial charge on the German lines. His body was never found, and it was not until 1917 that his family received the sad official notification that he was officially declared to have been killed in action. he was 22 years old. He is commemorated at the VC Corner Australian Cemetery and Memorial at Fromell. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, and among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Clarence Vernon De Lisle, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening.